You have heard of the Great Resignation. I know. You might even be sick of it. But have you heard of the career jungle gym? Not silly, it is strategy. Today we'll talk about it on Culture Builder Live. Hey, I'm Chris Wink. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Technically, a news organization that is a community of technology professionals. I know in our coverage and everywhere else, you cannot see, read, hear, or consume the Great Resignation phrase again without vomiting violently. I get it. You either think this is stupid, overblown, or so terrifying you can't manage. I get it. But there is, in the data, something happening with quit rates and with a giant cultural, psychological moment we are all going through as professionals. So we're trying to understand what to do about it. And I got in my inbox a one of these pitches that us journalists get a lot, which is a little bit of a clever metaphor. And you're like, all right, is this silly or not? But I thought this one deserved some rigor. So I am pleased to be joined by Chief People Officer at Jobber, Sara Cooper. Hello there, Sara.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well, and this pitch of yours, or a metaphor that you're working in, is the career jungle gym, and we're going to talk about it. I have a child; she enjoys the jungle gym, so I have a lot of nuanced feelings about this metaphor.
You're going to love it, trust me.
Good. All right, so we're gonna bring everyone along for this, and it's gonna do some work. But like before we dive into jungle gym specifically, something that is related that I'm thinking a lot about is our relationship to career. There's been lots of great reporting, storytelling. We've done this, others as well, on whether just our relationship to career has shifted a whole lot. If we've had a collective near-death experience and a whole lot of professionals ain't coming back, or the relationship to work is not going to be the same, and a lot of our tools of the past won't exist or won't work. So by way of introduction, Sara, can you talk to me a little bit about your feelings on has career changed, or do we know some truths that will always be there? Do you have feelings about this as a starting point?
Oh, I have feelings. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. So the past 18 months has been a time of reflection for pretty much everybody, right? So there's that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. I think this, this kind of proves that saying out. So we removed all of the daily grind. We removed all of the things that we were just kind of accustomed to, in some cases, hour-long commutes and the 8 hours in the office and the commute back home and not having enough time for your family and just kind of getting through every single day. And while obviously we don't wish a pandemic on the world, I think—
Thanks for that clarification. That's an important clarification.
Yes. I think what it did allow us to do was actually just take time to examine many parts of our lives, including career and what people value most. And in my mind, people are starting to realize that life is far too short, and you spend so much of your time, working, frankly, that it better be something you enjoy doing with a company that is going to support and invest you as much as you are investing in them. So I do think this is going to be a long-term situation. This is not going to be a blip on the radar. I think people are looking for their companies to see them as whole people and not just a number or somebody who is doing a particular function, but somebody who has needs and desires and a life outside of work. And they want to see that fulfillment in their lives.
I'm gonna do a dangerous thing and make a grand metaphor in a 15-minute interview.
Okay.
But I stick with me here. I can already feel how it will feel exhausting. But there's been this occasional reference to pause, the Black Death, pause, breathe, stay with me, about how our economic systems shifted there, that a third of the European continent was killed over 150 year the tightest year period, and there was a giant change in labor force, and entire feudal systems fell when there was a whole lot less supply in adult labor and demand went up. And there were a few academic cases to be made that transformed to a more market-based economy. Right. Super dramatic. I'm aware of this, But I have then seen a comparison to what you just alluded to, that we have perhaps had a giant shift in how a lot of professionals collectively woke up and said, all right, I've seen the rat race metaphors for decades, but maybe it just landed for me in a new way, and I'm going to demand of work something different, and workplaces that don't respond will fail behind.
Mhm.
Setting aside my overly dramatic metaphor, does that land at all for you, or is that kind of a moment you think we are in, or 20 years from now will this look silly and small?
I do think it lands. I think, again, if there's one thing this has done is shown us that folks really require flexibility. We have seen, especially people have been able to work from home this entire time. What we've seen is everybody's personal lives, right? We've seen kids crawling on laps and animals and Zoom bombs and all the rest of it. But I think that's what's allowed us to do is really be real people, and understand that, again, people have lives that they're trying to balance. So I don't think that there's any going back, that people are going to demand this because they've seen the other side at this point. I've seen the other side. I love being able to go for a walk at lunch or get on my Peloton or do whatever I want to do. I love being able to fit that into my regular day. And I imagine that that is the same for everybody, especially folks who are also managing elder care or child care or all these other things. I think companies that don't provide flexibility, whether that's from a personal perspective or a professional perspective, are going to be left behind. They're going to struggle to attract and retain really great talent.
All right. I'm in it. Let's do this thing.
All right.
Career jungle gym. I've had my fair share of metaphor-based email pitches before. So what is career jungle gym?
I'm so excited to share this with you. So, let's take it back a level, right? So context, historically, the belief was that being a success meant climbing the career ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you started an entry level role, and one day, 20 years later, you are a senior leader and you have a huge department and a budget, and then you retire with a gold watch and everybody forgets about you. That was like the hard truth of what careers meant, and have meant in a lot of ways over the years. The truth behind that career ladder metaphor is that, first of all, it doesn't happen for a lot of people, and frankly, a lot of people aren't even interested in that path, right? So there's been a ton of research that's been done in this, and the data shows that when we very specifically look at millennials and Gen Zs, which are either the generations that are fully in the workforce now and also coming into it, they are super interested in career development, and they are very willing to leave employers they are otherwise happy with in order to get that development if they don't feel they can get it from their current employer. So the important thing to understand here is when I say development, you need to understand that it means different things for different people. So yes, it may mean becoming that senior leader and climbing that ladder, but it may also mean changing career tracks entirely multiple times during your life. It may be becoming a senior subject matter expert and really focusing on becoming great in that functional area and mentoring others. So it's less about climbing the ladder and more about the moves that are going to help position a person best for success. So yes, sometimes those are upwards, but they may also be lateral. And frankly, they may also sometimes take a step back in order to better situate themselves for future success. And that's where that jungle gym metaphor comes in, that it's about climbing wherever you need to go in order to develop yourself the way you want to be developed. So when I think about Jobber, what this means for us is that our employees don't have to leave Jobber in order to pursue something meaningful to them. So, again, for many people, it does mean that they are going to be on the functional track and moving up. But what we've actually seen is a lot of people want to try something different. So we've had people from our sales team move into both marketing and product management. We've had someone from our operations team move into recruitment. We've had customer success move into operations. We actually just last week held a lunch and learn for folks who are interested in becoming product managers at Jobber. We had 53 people attend.
Wow.
So obviously we now have a big pipeline of future product managers. But I think that alone is just a really good indication that folks really want this and they're interested in just exploring what success means for them.
I like that, and as noted, I'm quite fluent in jungle gym matters now as a father, and let's be real, as a jungle gym user myself. I think this fits into, we've covered a ton, particularly with technical workforces, a fixation on some companies to build out stronger and more defined individual contributor versus management track folks, because that has so often been, sure, you can be an individual contributor, you just will completely stunt your career growth. And now companies, I think, have understood lots of huge missed opportunity. If we have great individual performers who want to remain individual performers, we need to find a way to retain them. Is that almost an example of a like, that would be the I don't know, a swing? I don't have the right jungle gym metaphor there, but there's another journey for someone.
Yeah, I think we have to, for a company to really embrace this, you have to be authentic about it, right? So we have to celebrate anything a person does that is meaningful for them and is going to make them feel like a success. So, if I think about the jungle gym metaphor, if you are only ever celebrating a promotion, like to a people leader position, for example, then even if you have the infrastructure in place to allow people to be a senior individual contributor or switch careers, people aren't going to feel that that's a valid choice for them. They're not going to feel as supported. So what's important is making sure that it's authentic. So celebrating every single move, and whether that is a promotion, whether it's a lateral move, whether it's staying in your role and just becoming really good at it, like that needs to be okay too. And it needs to be okay also for people to take what may be perceived as a step back in order to switch their career entirely. I always say those step backs are actually, maybe they should be celebrated the most, because it takes the most bravery to take a pause in the direction you were going, take that step back to better situate yourself for where you want to go in the future.
Well said.
And yeah, and I think that's one thing that unfortunately some companies miss out on, and it's very important if you're going to go forward with this method.
So then let's send this out with a bit more tactics. You've helpfully alluded to a couple that we can call out in the show notes and the recap and the Culture Builder newsletter. If you guys are not on that, we'll make sure to put that link in below the video as well. But maybe throw a couple other tactics. What does this mean? I watched this video. All right, Sara told me I got to be thinking about other moves for folks, not just a ladder climb. What do I actually do? Are there real implementation steps you'd suggest?
Absolutely. So the first and biggest is making sure you actually have a development and infrastructure in place. So what you don't want is just saying, yeah, you can do what, you can move into whatever position you want, and then it's very nebulous, right? So we took a ton of time upfront to build out a development infrastructure. So every single role at Jobber has obviously a description, but it also has levels attached to it. So you understand both what's expected of you and as well as what you're going to have to deliver as you go through seniority in that position. And then it also has a kind of a traditional functional career path attached to it. So you understand that if you're in this position, here's where you could potentially go. But if you want to switch to a different department, here's what those positions look like as well. So what this ends up doing is allowing an employee to sit down with their people leader and say, look, let's figure out where I am now. Here's where I want to go. And now let's build a development plan collaboratively together to get there. And then they're supported in that by the coaching and development team that we have at Jobber. So that's the most important piece. You need to have that infrastructure because it needs to be very well thought out how people can move from position to position, whether it's functionally or cross-functionally. I think the second piece is making sure you really have buy-in from the leaders in the organization, right? So one thing that I like to point out is, it's really important from a retention standpoint that we make sure people know that we are investing in them, in people. I said this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. People spend a ton of time at work and they are investing their time and energy with us. And so it's only fair that we invest in them as well. It costs 2.5 times a person's salary to replace them if they decide to leave. Not to mention the impact on team cohesion and tribal knowledge and all of that other stuff. So, yes, from personal level, it's very important. From a business perspective, it's also very important. So leadership really needs to get behind investing in this in order for it to work. And I think those are the two most important things if you're thinking about putting something like this in place that you need to make sure you're doing upfront.
Sara, well said. I also want to note for longtime listeners of Culture Builder Live, we've recently begun doing this on LinkedIn Live. So we will take and show comments live, like I see some love for Sara Cooper from, I believe, A Friendly Face. So thank you, Travis, for the shout out. Sara, thanks so much for your conversation. As always, this will run on technically in the Culture Builder newsletter. And folks, we will now increasingly be doing these live on LinkedIn. So if you want to watch live, drop comments and give feedback, we would love that. For now, Sara, thank you. That's the recap of the jungle gym metaphor. I'm in for it. I appreciate your time. Shout out to Jobber and Sara for your work.
Thank you.
And we'll see everyone. We'll see everyone next time.